Thank you for attending to my presentation. Sorry, my English really broken. Today, I will talk about Mobiruby and Mruby. It's my probably third time English presentation. I'm still feeling nervous. Introduce myself. Nice to meet you. I'm Yuichiro Masui. Twitter account and GitHub account is Masui Drive. And Japanese friends call me the Masui-san. I'm living in Tokyo now, but 2 years ago I live in the Seattle. And I really love the programming. I'm programming every time and everywhere. I bring a laptop anytime. Especially I really love the Ruby language. But my most popular open source product is a PHP-based Wiki engine. It's Wiki. And I'm extreme programming. My Japanese friends know me as a programmer. Pro means hot tub. I really love the programming, and I really love the hot super and hot super. It's in Japanese it's flow. I'm coding while in the hot tub. Almost this presentation right in the hot tub. I'm working at 2 Japanese startups now, Frog Apps and Toilet App. Frog Apps has released food photo sharing application for the iPhone and Android. But this application built on the native language Objective-C and Java, not Mobiruby. Please rise up if you know the Titanium Mobile. With few people only. Until last year, I worked at Accelerator. What is Titanium Mobile? Titanium Mobile is a JavaScript-based mobile application development toolchain for the iPhone, Android, Windows 8, and Tizen. Today's main topic is Mobiruby. What is Mobiruby? Mobiruby is iOS application development toolchain on the Mruby. It's a competition with the Titanium Mobile. Mobiruby is my private project. It's not business. You can create iOS application using a Ruby language. Mobiruby provides a bridge between the Coco library and Ruby language. You can call native Coco class and Coco native functions instead of using Objective-C. Mobiruby is Mobiruby only support iOS now, but I have a plan to support Android version. I've already this Mobiruby based game application on the App Store. If you have time, if you have an iPhone, please search Mobiruby in your App Store. This application is a demo, very simple puzzle game. It's Samegame. It's my favorite. It's built using Ruby language only, not Objective-C. It uses UI image view and UI animation. It's a native Coco classes. And call the Safari and back to the application, and supported TCP/IP and the networking application, networking capability. It's called the JSON APIs. Mobiruby is based on the Mruby. Mruby is latest Ruby implementation by Max. I heard Mobiruby first time in the 2010. At the time, it was called Live VM. Mobiruby is designed for the embedded environments. It means small memories, CPU independent, and modular structure. Mobiruby is more compact than the other Ruby implementations. On OS X, Mobiruby binary is under the 400 kilobytes, but C Ruby is over 2.5 megabytes. Mobiruby is even smaller. Mobiruby has Mobiruby has a modular structure. If you want to remove math library or IO library, you can do it easily. So Mobiruby supported multiple virtual machines. CRuby does not support it yet. And instead, Mobiruby has many limitations than CRuby and other Ruby implementations. Mobiruby is built on ISO specifications. It means Mobiruby does not support Thread and other lot of libraries. Almost all Ruby standard libraries are not supported, like CSV or encoding complement. A lot of almost Ruby standard library does not support it yet. So Mobiruby gem is not supported yet too. If you want to use useful extension or Ruby gems, you should write yourself from scratch. And extensions API is really different with CRuby and Mobiruby. And Mobiruby's biggest feature is configuration. If you don't need to use math library and regular expression, you can remove it using configuration file. If you don't a math library, you can remove it and from library and save your memories. Almost classes provided through the Mobiruby gems is a similar feature of the Ruby gems package system on Mobiruby. And lot of configuration capability. One is garbage collection or method searching algorithm. And Mobiruby target is embedded environments. It's a small memories. And one is example, Fukuoka CSK success to run Mobiruby on the milestones. It has a 200 kilobytes ROM and a flash and 64 kilobytes memory only. Very compact. And Raspberry Pi and BigBoard is a good target for the Mobiruby. They have small memory than your PCs. And one is under digital appliance and game console, the meta machine. A lot of the environment target is good for the Mobiruby. And I think very good target is bundle with PC's application like editors, macro language, Emacs and list. And one is a guy built Mobiruby module for the Apache. You can make Apache module using a Ruby language. And Mobiruby does not support Ruby gems, but Mobiruby has the same capability. It's called Mobiruby Gems. It's a Mobiruby extension package system. A lot of people build these libraries. Currently, over 100 libraries. And there is a start point of the Mobiruby. I had Mobiruby and Light VM at 2010, but I had waited Mobiruby releasing 2 years, but not appeared forever. So I sent tweet to Max. Can I have Light VM? Max said yes. 2012 the March, I got access to the Mobiruby private repositories before Max releasing to the public, and so I started try to run on Mobiruby run on the iPhone, and Mobiruby provides Ruby pod. I have a vision for on the Mobiruby. Mobiruby provides a Ruby power to the mobile devices, especially the mobile phone. Do you know the Wax? Wax is a WAX. Wax is a Lua language-based iPhone application development toolchain. It's really similar to the Mobiruby. Lua language is a really popular language around embedded system and game development. The syntax is near JavaScript and ActionScript. The Wax was born about 3 years ago, but it is not popular yet. I think the code is a Lua language. The bridge library is one of the Glue language that needs for the powerful language support. I think Lua language does not have enough capability, dynamic programming capabilities. I think metaprogramming is most important powerful Ruby language capability. Ruby's metaprogramming can make good wrapping native libraries and make DSL for the iPhone and Android. And this is hello world code on the for the Mobiruby. If you know iOS development on the Objective-C, you can really you can understand this code easily. It's really similar to Objective-C. If you run the code, this code appear the dialog. And this code is 2 parts. And in the first half, the code defines a new class, my alert view. It's inherited from UI alert view class. UI alert view class is a Coco native class. And this code, Coco native class inherited to the Ruby class. The defined new delegate method through the define method. Define method. Mobiruby has not supported keyword arguments. It's a 2.0 Ruby 2.0 feature. Mobiruby based on almost Ruby 1.8, and Mobiruby has not ordered hash class. And sorry. My alert view defined on the Ruby class. So it's a Ruby class and Objective-C class. Ruby and Objective-C, both sides can touch the MyArtView. This code is a Ruby language, but can this class touch from the Objective-C and Coco libraries? And the second half, create MyArtView object instance and show this alert box. When you call the Objective-C method, you need to start with underscore and as this slideshow. On current version, if you want iOS application on Mobiruby, you need to understand the Objective-C and the Coco libraries. If you want to create Mobiruby-based application, if you need to understand Objective-C and Coco library and Ruby language, you need a lot of technologies. Almost iOS development does not know the Ruby language, and the Ruby programmers don't know the Objective-C. I think it is not good. So I'm aiming to this code is the next version. It looks like truly Ruby language. And in the Ruby on Rails, actively code wrapping the SQL and provide good DSL to the Ruby programmers. So Mobiruby will wrapping Coco class, Coco libraries, and Mobiruby provide a good DSL for the good iOS DSL for the Ruby programmers. At first, I focused to make a Coco library bridge on the mRuby. It's a baseline of the Mobiruby. And after that, I will create a new DSL and APIs. And I will talk about Mobiruby internals. Mobiruby is made up of the 5 components. mRuby is a main component of the Mobiruby. It was some configuration changes, and I made some patches. And second component is mRuby cfunc. It's an interface with C-level function and mRuby. It's original for the Mobiruby. mRuby cfunc provides the interface to the mRuby and C-level functions. It's similar to the RubyDL library on the C Ruby. You can call the put C function from mRuby language. Internally, it converts Ruby string to the C string. Look up the put function pointer and call this function. So mRuby can call all C function without special extensions. This component is independent from the Mobiruby. If you want to use mRuby C function, you can use it. Oh. This is one of the sample code. This is the Ruby language, but the second one is memory allocation and calls string copy C function and convert to the Ruby string object. And can define the struct. So this mRuby cfunc modules, if you use the mRuby cfunc module, you can call the all C function using a Ruby language only. And the third component is mRuby Coco. It's an interface to the Objective-C and Coco libraries. It's Mobiruby Coco is a bridge for the Coco and iOS libraries. This library provides transparent communication with Mobiruby and Coco libraries. Mobiruby Coco provides create a new instance of the Coco and Objective-C class on the Mobiruby. You can also inherit it from the existing Coco class on the Mobiruby. In earlier Hello World sample, we inherited from the UI alert view to the My alert view. UI alert view is a Coco class, native class, and My alert view is defined in Ruby. Coco and Ruby class can manipulate transparency. Natural interface delegation and block function supported in this library. In this library, hardest part is memory management. Objective-C using difference counting, but Mobiruby using mark and sweep garbage collection. It's hard to free object correctly in the both environment. Now, all Objective-C class release method are overridden. It's awful bottleneck for the performance, probably 5 or 10 times slow than the regular release method. In fact, and it affects all Coco libraries that are included and not related with Mobiruby object. It still have a problem that I cannot detect. It cannot detect a circular reference. I will fix at some future. Probably I will rewrite in the same ARM and x86 assemblers. And the fourth component is Mobiruby Common. It's for the future release. When we will release iPhone and Android version. It provide common utility among iOS and Android version. Currently provides a require and load method only. Standard Mobiruby does not require method, because Mobiruby does not have file I/O capability. Its file I/O is depend to the environment, and some embedded environment does not have file system, because Mobiruby does not have a required load method. The last component is Mobiruby iOS. It's a mainly part of the Mobiruby for iOS. It provides iOS specific utilities that included Xcode integration. In the first version, this component is poor, so I don't know Xcode deeply. I need help about Xcode configurations. In the future, Mobiruby will provide good wrapper APIs. It has some compatibility between iOS and Android. When you use their APIs, you can use the Coco API at the same time. And the roadmap, I don't have a detailed plan for the Mobiruby, so it's my private project. It's not a business. I don't have a boss and a marketing section. I was aiming first product level version until the end of this year, but it's a delay now. This version supports almost all Objective-C capabilities. I plan to start writing API and tutorial documents. And the current status is I already released the Mobiruby game to the App Store. Apple never rejected this application. And last year, I released the first alpha version of the Mobiruby. And I'm keeping an update. Currently, Mobiruby is not for ordinary Ruby programmer and iOS programmer. If you know the Objective-C and interest to the Mruby, please join to this project. And I have some frequency questions. First defined from the Ruby Motion. Ruby Motion is a LLVM based compiler for the iOS development. It's biggest difference is Ruby Motion is not open source. It's a product and closed source. Sorry.